Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Dr. Alice Reid, and I am the spiritual leader here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Capistrano Valley. And I'm also the chair of the Leadership Council for our, which is similar to a board, for our international organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, for 4 more days. It has been a pleasure to serve, and it is a pleasure to make space for new leadership. So we have our annual meeting for the Centers for Spiritual Living. It's available to everyone. I'll ask Pam to put a link for the registration on the email that goes out Monday in case you're interested. It goes for 2 days, and you learn all about an organization that you belong to that has a larger footprint. Not as large as, say, the Hindus or the Buddhists or the Catholics, but certainly we have about 400 centers around the world, mostly in continental North America and South America. And I share that with you because I have 4 days left. So I'm pretty excited about that. We have a lot going on at the center right now, and I'll share more about that when we do the announcements. But today we are talking about this idea, with, our annual theme is rising higher, growing deeper. And what that means to me is that as we raise up, as we continue to do our spiritual practice, as we continue to use the spiritual tools in our toolkit and raise higher, we also have to root deeper. We also have to root deeper. We need to continue to ground ourselves in practice as well. And somewhere in the middle, we live our life, right? We live our life and we walk out this philosophy and this practice in our day-to-day. The idea that we're talking about this month is the flow of coming and going. And it's this idea of being with the presence and in the presence while we are simply living our lives, that we can find some place to experience the everyday sacred. And the teacher that comes to mind for me is Joel Goldsmith. Who is familiar with The Infinite Way and Joel Goldsmith? Yeah, he was a teacher in the first half of the last century, and he was deeply rooted in spiritual practice and meditation. He wrote a bunch of books. Some of the titles will give you a sense of the type of teacher he was. Thundering Silence is one of the books he wrote. He wrote a book about Between the Worlds, where he talks about, or should I say writes about, how to live with ourselves being in that oneness of both the etheric spiritual world and then this material world that we live in, and how to be in that sweet spot in between. So I'm going to use some of his quotes and some of his material as we go through this idea today. And of course, the still small voice is the topic. And I thought my exchange with Reverend Carla was perfect, because that's kind of how it happens, right? We go to that place with the still small voice, and then the chatter happens. She tried to create a pause, and I was like, no, it's the still small voice. That's what we're talking about. That is how my spiritual practice goes. I remember hearing Pema Chödrön talk about, listening to one of her talks, and she shared how when she goes into meditation, and if you don't know who Pema Chödrön is, she's a famous Buddhist nun. And she's written a plethora of books also on this idea of stillness and going within. And she shared simply that when, her practice often looks like she gets up to do practice, to lead a meditation. She sits down. Everybody's following her. She's doing a little guidance. She takes people into a little stillness, and then she hears, oh, that woman in the front row, she had a funny look on her face. I wonder if she thought I was dressed funny. Oh, I wonder if I remember to get that thing from the grocery store. Like, that's the chatter that happens in our mind. And sometimes we have things that are weighing heavy on our heart, right? And they creep into our mind and interrupt that kind of still place that we're trying to get to. But I think that still small voice is pretty critical for us so that we can be really grounded. Today, more than any other time, because I think there's a lot of things to grab our attention. There's a lot of things that can feel like a distraction, or I don't know about you, but I feel sometimes my attention feels like a ping pong ball in a octagon room with many walls, and it's just bouncing off the walls because there's so many things that can grab my attention. And so stillness is that opportunity to quiet the busyness in our minds. And one of the tricky things that we have to look at is when we are listening for that still small voice, how do we know that it's the still small voice and not our ego and the chatter? How do we know that? Yeah, it takes practice. It takes practice of listening, of that deep inner listening, and beginning to recognize. One of the telltale signs for me, there's a couple. One for me is, do I feel more expansive, light, or do I feel heavy and contracted? And when I feel heavy and contracted, it's usually my ego. But when I feel more, maybe in a more neutral space and a lighter sense of energy, then I know that that's more in line with spirit, because I don't believe that spirit has any urgency about anything. It just is. It just is, and we're looking for that place where we can be in alignment with spirit. The other telltale sign that comes up for me often is to do a little inner inquiry about where I feel like I'm drawing, what's my relationship to power, right? Am I feeling powerless? Am I feeling like I'm trying to take control of something? That can be the ego. You remember, and I don't say this to villainize the ego, I need my ego to remind me to do things that are keeping my body temple safe. Really, that's what the ego was designed for. It was designed for spiritual beings living in a material world and helping to keep us safe. But it's kind of like that codependent friend that is like on you all the time. You tell them you're going to be working on a project, and they show up and they say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Did you try this? Did you read this? Did you look at that? That's kind of like the ego. It wants to jump in there and kind of take control, and it doesn't know where to stop. And so our work with stillness is to find a place where we can slow things down a little bit. And in the world today, I have trouble with that. It's hard to slow things down when there are lots of things going on that are grabbing my attention. And so this idea of stillness brings us to a practice of meditation. And there are many, many different kinds of meditation. There's almost, I have practiced Vipassana meditation, guided meditation. I have practiced breathing meditation, a walking meditation. The idea of meditation is to slow our thinking down. Ernest Holmes has I think it was Ernest Holmes that had this quote that I wanted to share. Actually, it's Eckhart Tolle, Joni, Joni's favorite teacher, Eckhart Tolle. And in his book, Stillness Speaks, he writes, when you recognize that there is a voice in your head that pretends to be you and never stops speaking, you are coming out of the unconscious identification with the stream of thoughts. When you notice that voice, you realize that you are not the voice, the thinker, but the one who is aware of it. And freedom lies in knowing yourself as the consciousness behind the voice. Freedom. Anybody else sometimes feel like you are a slave to the monkey mind, right? All the stuff that's going through our heads. Well, stillness is that place where we can get a little pause, a little break, where we can begin to be aware of our thoughts and our thinking so that it doesn't run away with us. Because that's what happens to me when I get hyper concerned about something, right? I want to fix it. I want to make it better. I start churning about all the different ways I can work through something, fix something, make it go away, make it come on more. There's all kinds of thoughts that can go through our heads. And while we are teaching, we are called New Thought, right? This is the teaching that we belong to is called New Thought. And it is the thinker that is connected, divinely connected and aligned with spirit that gives us the new thought. So that our thoughts are a blessing and not a burden. So that we can pay attention to the things that we're thinking and that we can actually have a little sense of agency with what we're thinking. Joel Goldsmith says, this continual practice of presence, a recognition of God in all that we do, providing us with sufficient periods to enter into silence and awaiting an inner feeling that the Spirit of God is moving, makes God the principle that governs and supports and sustains all of our experiences. So we have a relationship to this energetic substance that is all that is. You know me. What's my favorite name for God? The thing that makes the grass grow. Absolutely. The thing that makes the grass grow. It's lovely. It doesn't matter which faith you might have grown up with. You can understand that idea that there is something that makes the grass grow, that animates all life, and that is the thing that we want to connect with. We are working this month, I'm drawing upon a couple of the We Believe statements that are in the beginning of the Science of Mind magazine. Every bi-monthly issue that comes out reprints these statements that were asked of Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of our philosophy, what's it all about? And he made these declarations of principle, and one of them is we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. So that means that whatever I'm experiencing right now is just a small portion of my existence. My human existence, however many years, some of us 100 years, our beloved June, whatever that period of time is that I happen to be in this body temple, is just a portion of my existence. I'm not trying to diminish it. I'm not trying to say it's not important. I'm just trying to give us some perspective. One of the teachers that I draw upon, authors that I draw upon, is Margaret Wheatley, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. She talks about the lifespan of societies and civilizations, that things have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then they begin again. And so having this broader perspective that whatever we're going through, yes, it's important for us to be engaged, probably not fruitful, probably not helpful necessarily to be enraged, but it's important for us to be engaged. And we become engaged first by dropping into some sense of stillness and groundedness so that we can know what is ours to do in whatever situation we're having in our material existence. The other principle that we're working with this month is that we believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. So that means if I walk around saying, the world's not a safe place, the world's not a safe place, the world's not a safe place, I'm going to have that experience. My personal purpose and grounding statement is that I'm here to reveal love. And when I can focus on that purpose, I find myself in experiences where I have the opportunity to reveal more love. So as we are moving through remember, we have this immortal, eternal existence. And as we are moving through our piece of this existence in this body temple at this time in South Orange County or wherever you might be watching from, this now moment, I want to say this carefully, this now moment is as important as your whole eternal, immortal existence. And you can collapse all of that when you practice stillness. And come to that place of this now moment, which is equal to your whole entire existence. And we do that through meditation. We do that through spiritual practice. We do that in prayer. We remember where we have come from. We remember the broader picture, and we can boil it right down to this now moment. And so for the last couple of years, we were doing a meditation on Wednesday nights. We're pausing it for a little while. But I have been learning a different kind of meditation, and I want to share it with you this morning. And so if you'll indulge me, I'm going to invite us to do a little meditation practice. And so I invite you to get comfortable, and you may want to close your eyes and take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. And notice how it feels with each breath that you take. It might be the rise and fall of your chest. You might feel an expansion in your belly. Just focus on where your breath feels in your body temple. And then I want you to expand that breath and just to imagine that with each in-breath, that breath, the inhalation moves down your spine, all the way down your body. And then with your exhalation, you feel that breath come back up, out through the top of your head. And so imagine this with the in-breath. The in-breath moves down through the center of your body, and the out-breath up, up, up through the top of your head. And use your imagination and your breath for a couple of moments. And feel into that. Now imagine that your body temple is layer upon layer upon layer of energy. And that as your breath moves vertically up and down through your body, it moves through all these layers that is your body. It moves through all these layers that are your conscious thoughts and unconscious thoughts. And allow your breath to move through those layers as if it was clearing them of stray thoughts and ideas, concerns, worries. Just breathing in and out, vertically up and down through your body, through all those layers of who you are, so that the breath is what you're focused on. And if you're like me and Pema, and one of your thoughts starts to invade this stillness place, think of it like it's out on a branch of a tree, and your breath brings it back to that center trunk. And you again remember that breathing, vertical breath of breathing down and then breathing up so that you are centered. Knowing that this breath, this vertical breath that you move up and down through your body, has the ability to bring you to a place of stillness. And that any thoughts or concerns or worries that you have, you just bring into the center as if you were a tree. Anything that wants to go out into the lateral existence of your ideas comes back to center. And the breath simply cleans it and aligns it and brings you back to a grounded space. The now moment that is no different than the eternal moment. One and the same. Taking one more deep breath and coming back into this space. Opening your eyes when you're ready. This is the vertical breath that we can use to bring our attention back to our center place, to our heart, to a cleansing place where we can align all those layers of energy that come to us. And when we do that on a regular basis, when we recognize that that's a tool when things are spinning, and even if you could picture it as a tree, right? Your energy system as a tree, and then all the stuff that you do, my Alice episodes over here with family, and my Alice episodes over here with, the news and the things that are concerning me. I simply bring it back to center and ground myself in stillness. So again, Joel Goldsmith, he writes, "It is possible to think and think untruth. And up to a certain point, that is normal, natural, and right. But then there must come a time when thought stops. A blank comes, almost a vacuum. And then into that vacuum rushes the very presence and power of God. We can only come into that presence stark naked in a moment of complete silence, and I would say stillness, when the entire thought processes have stopped. when we have nothing upon which to rely, nothing on which to pin our hopes, but when we have made ourselves completely empty. And in that moment, we hear the still small voice. Now, I don't want to dissuade you if you have trouble stilling your mind. It takes practice. I'm sure anyone here who has a regular meditation practice will tell you when you first start, if you are new to that practice of stilling your mind, when you first start, it's kind of like a box full of puppies. And the thoughts just keep coming. They keep trying to climb out of that box and get your attention. But as you practice simply breathing and just bringing whatever it is back to center, you will find that stillness. And you will begin to hear that still small voice. It won't wave a banner. There'll be no lights or billboards. It'll just be an idea. Some thought that comes through. I should call my sister. I think I'll check on my neighbor. I want to send a card to my girlfriend. Something simple. I think I'll go to that protest. It could be something like that. It could be, I think I'll stay home. That still small voice has no energy behind it. It just comes forward for you, and you'll feel a lightness, and you'll know what to do. And in these days that we find ourselves in, it looks like I'm going to have to talk about this other piece next week or the week after that. As these still small voice whispers in your ear, listen to it. See what it has to say to you. There's good advice there. And it isn't because you sat down and madly researched the internet or talked to everybody about what it is you thought needed to be done. It's because you got still and you allowed the vacuum of stillness to bring in the voice of God, that thing that makes the grass grow, your intuition, your inner mystic that is always just a breath away. We are immortal beings having a mortal experience, and stillness helps us to connect with that. And so my invitation to you is to practice that vertical breath. Practice working with your thoughts, bringing them bringing them back into that center channel and allowing your breath to just move them up and down so that you can have a clear sense of this now moment. I think we need a little stillness right now. There's a lot of chaos going on in the world, and a little stillness will really help us to know what is ours to do, what is ours to pay attention to, so that we can be engaged and be engaged from a grounded place. Love is always the answer, no matter the question. One of my favorite quotes. And I can tap into that. And I want to say that I'm not talking about the love that is syrupy love that just lets anybody run over you. No, I'm talking about the love that knows what is your next step in whatever situation you find yourself. So practice your meditation. Take a meditation class. Listen to a guided meditation. Do those things that will help still your mind so that you can really be engaged and know what's yours to do in these tumultuous times that we're living in. Thank you very much. And so one of our practices is affirmative prayer. And so join me if you will. as I speak these words, as we remember that beautiful connectedness we just felt a moment ago. It hasn't gone anywhere. We just bring our attention back to center. We recognize that power and that presence, that still small voice that just needs us to be quiet for a moment. And so I know for each one that we are deeply aware of our own holiness, of our own guidance, of the still small voice that speaks through us. And we know that in this space of grounding and aligning ourselves with Spirit, we allow Spirit to express in the world by means of us. And so I know for each one a greater and a deeper and a higher experience of that energetic presence as we move through our day, as we move through our week, our month, our year. We continue to find our groundedness, our sanity, our equilibrium in this stillness. And that not only does it bless us, but it blesses everyone around us. And so I celebrate the willingness of each one to tap into that stillness, to be the expression of Spirit, exactly as each one is. I am so grateful for each one, grateful for this field of possibility that we enter into. And so I simply anchor this word in the same spirit as we say together, and so it is.